Bahamas. Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operator.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. And welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. And as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in and making GPS a part of your afternoon. So we are going to be talking today about a subject matter that is becoming an increasing problem here in our country. And there are many external factors that have contributed to this problem. And from all indications, we are heading into some very rough territory where the stakeholders say it's going to get even worse than what it is now. So this is something that we obviously need to pay attention to. I think we're actually a little behind the eight ball when it relates to that. I think this is something that we should have been preparing for quite some time now, but better late than never to start doing the right thing if you're not. So we're going to be talking about food security, or should I say food insecurity, and how that is translating into what some are describing as a hunger crisis here in the Bahamas. There are many, many people right now who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Hungry, going to bed, children going to bed hungry, children going to school without having anything to eat. And if you know anything about the way the brain works and the body works, it's very, very difficult for a child to learn if they're hungry. And so we've got this situation in this country now where more and more people are very, very hungry, it seems, all the time. And we have several agencies here that are doing everything that they can to try to meet the demand, but the demand is growing. And they are starting to, in many ways, feel that they're not winning this battle. So we're going to be talking about that today. And Jason, I'm going to need you to bring them in. My guests today are from Hands for Hunger, the executive director, Keisha Ellis, and representing the Bahamas Feeding Network is the newly appointed head of that network, Mario Carey. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on the show. Look forward to having a productive conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to be here. Keisha, are you in?
I'm in. Hello, and thank you for having me as well.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. We're also going to be joined a little later on by Walter Hanchell from Great Commission Ministries.
He's going to join us around 3-ish to weigh in on the conversation because, like both of you, he works extremely hard every day just trying to feed people. And there are many others throughout the country who are doing their part, and yet the demand seems so great. So, both of you, boots on the ground, you know exactly what's happening. Mario, let's start with you in terms of the numbers, because your organization is sort of an umbrella organization that touches and reaches many other organizations that are involved in feeding people. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Through our distribution centers for the Bahamas Feeding Network, we have over 100 scattered throughout the island of New Providence.
Okay.
You're right. So we touch a lot of communities through those 100 distribution centers.
Okay. And what are you seeing on the ground as it relates to the level of need out there?
We're seeing a high demand for food, the need to be fed. Currently, having joined the feeding network, the number that we have been feeding is 72,000 meals a month.
72,000
a month.
Wow.
That is a big number, and look at the population of New Providence. That's almost 10% of the population of New Providence that are in need of being fed, that need to be fed every month. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. The children, like you said, how do you feed them? The ability to go to school to learn, the strain of trying to think about food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you prioritize it when it comes to having to afford a place to live, school fees, all those things. So the demand is high. And again, Walter, I know he's going to join us on the show. I visited his Great Commission's location on Wolf Road, and I'll let him talk more about it. But when I was there, just a typical day, they feed 500 hot meals every day, Michelle. That's a big number.
Is that separate and apart from your 72,000?
That is separate and apart. Right, that's separate and apart. 500 hot meals a day.
Wow.
The kitchen is active. The lines are long. New faces are showing up. And that's the story. Those are real hard facts.
Amazing. Keisha, let's get you in on here. Hands for Hunger. First of all, tell my audience who may not be familiar with the organization what it is that Hands for Hunger does, and then what you are seeing from your vantage point as it relates to this problem.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me again. So Hands for Hunger, we have been a food bank in the Bahamas for almost 15 years now. And we operate as well with a network of feeding programs that we help. So we help about 40 feeding agencies throughout New Providence by delivering them food and food items that they can then in turn share with the people that they serve throughout the island of New Providence. In addition to that, we provide food parcels to islands like Eleuthera and Acklins, as well as distribute food parcels throughout Nassau in our regular community markets. Some of your audience may have seen us kind of pop up on a park or in another community space and give out hot meals and food boxes there as well. In addition to that, we operate our own Hands for Hunger pantry, where we have our clients come through and choose the grocery items that would best serve their particular family and their needs. And then we also support school pantries. So we have pantries in 15 schools across New Providence where we're able to have ready on-site meals for students who come to school without breakfast or who don't have lunch or for some reason are ineligible for the National School Lunch Program.
Okay, and that is separate and apart from what the Bahamas Feeding Network is doing? or are you a part of that network?
No, no. Our work is separate from Bahamas Feeding Network. I'm sure that there is some overlap in terms of the organizations that we're able to serve. For example, we donate food to children's homes throughout the islands, as well as drug rehabilitation centers, senior citizens homes, churches that provide lunch, organizations like the Salvation Army, things like that. So I'm sure if the Bahamas Feeding Network is serving 100 agencies throughout New Providence, I'm sure there's a bit of an overlap there.
See, the reason I'm asking that is because I want people to understand the sheer scope of what we're talking about. Because you're all talking about very large numbers of people who are being fed, and you're all doing this, separately to some degree. So I want people to understand how big of a problem this is. It's just, I don't.
I mean, I agree with your sentiment. It is a widespread problem. And what we've found at Hands for Hunger, based on the research that we've conducted, is that food insecurity or the struggles that families face really kind of differ from week to week or month to month. And I think Mario touched on this. There are times when the need is much more acute in a family than other times. So it's important to look at it as kind of a fluid thing. It's not everyone that's in the case where every day they are suffering from acute lack of food, but there are times when people are struggling a bit more than they are. And this is how all of this work that all of us do together are able to really kind of canvas the entire island and kind of really help people during the times when they're at most need.
Now, this is happening at a time when everybody's been warning us about what is to come as it relates to inflation and global supply chain issues, which means that as bad as it is now, this is a very real probability that it will get worse in the weeks, months ahead as this problem escalates globally. So how are you both prepared to manage even more of a need once this goes south the way that many people are predicting it will?
Keisha, I'll jump in. I mean, again, it's unfortunate that the demand will not ebb. We anticipate it will get higher. Again, the distribution centers continue to see new faces show up, persons that have now relied on aid to get fed, and that's a trend in itself that's very noticeable just by the people themselves that show up. And these communities have been servicing the same people for a number of years, and then they see new faces. It's only safe to say that now they're falling on hard times. And then the cost of everything, inflation is very real. The trickle down effect, and everything here is expensive and sort of controlled by a few suppliers anyway. Mm-hmm. So, and everybody wants to make a profit. So where's the give and take? So what we're trying to do is bring awareness through shows like this, and we continuously have to get the village mentality. We have to ask the audience and the community to get involved, and be creative on how you can sort of help with this. Let's call it a crisis. I think anybody going hungry on a daily basis in a country like the Bahamas is a crisis. It's not acceptable. We should expect more from a country, and everybody is involved, not just Bahamians, not just government. Anybody who lives there needs to buy into this idea of eradicating hunger in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. Keisha?
That's a big question, Michelle, and I think that question that you asked is the question, right? What are we going to do collectively? What is Hands for Hunger going to do? Bahamas Feeding Network? And I mean, I will say that I do feel optimistic when I see the amount of attention that this conversation is getting. And when I see that people are interested and eager to think of actual solutions to food insecurity, rather than kind of the immediate emergency assistance that we're able to provide. And I think that, a lot of us kind of intuitively know the answer. We know that we need to grow more food here in the Bahamas. We know that we need to access the wealth of our oceans a little bit, perhaps better than we are. Our oceans, our country is mostly water, and that water is filled with food. But at the same time, one of the most requested items from Hands for Hunger is tuna, right? So there's an absolute disconnect there in terms of food that is available, and more or less kind of easily accessible to Bahamians, and the food that Bahamians are craving or consuming the most. So I think that we need a kind of shift in the palates of Bahamians and what we choose to kind of consider as food. In addition to that, we need to have better control over our supply of food as a nation. And I know that there's a lot of work going on now regarding backyard farming, commercial agriculture here in the Bahamas. And so I see that we are making steps toward that. But I would like to see us making strides.
So, wow, I guess we're going to have to do some work as it relates to, like you said, changing people's mindsets. But, I remember my grandmother used to say when I was growing up that a hungry dog will eat raw corn. And so perhaps we're getting to the point where people will have no choice but to change the way they think about certain foods, because it is what it is. You want to make sure that your family is fed. You want to make sure nobody feels good about their kids going hungry.
Right.
So we have to now start to rethink our approach in many ways, so that we can ensure that our children are getting something to eat.
Yeah, and I hope that we don't wait until it gets to such a dire point, right? The good thing about the Bahamas is that we are not talking about widespread famine. We are not talking about being in a place where food does not exist, right? So luckily, that's not the situation that we have on the ground in the Bahamas. One of the biggest issues in the Bahamas is a distribution. Right, a distribution of the wealth and excess of food that does exist in the country. So I would like to see kind of Bahamians choosing to shift their palates rather than waiting until the point where we are at the point where we eat raw corn, just because we haven't taken steps to prevent that situation.
Here's the thing, though. Most food store owners will tell you that they keep a 3-month supply in their warehouse. We import just about everything into the country that we eat. So what happens, God forbid, if there is a real disruption in the supply chain to the degree where boats aren't coming in? What do we do then?
Well, what we do is that's when we go back to what we have access to here. And I think what we will find in a situation like that is that we have a lot here that we're kind of overlooking. We are able and capable to find food locally. We just have kind of grown out of the understanding that this is good food, this is healthy food. There are a myriad of reasons why that's the case, right? And part of it has to do with the ease of trade that we have with the U.S., which is not a bad thing in any regard. But, easy access to food has really kind of shifted our perception of what food is and what good food is, right? So you may have a Bahamian who will spend top dollar for something like cassava flour that has nice... Right, that has a nice label and is very shiny and pretty.
When your bananas taste better, sweeter, fresher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these are shifts I'd like to see all Bahamians make it, not just Bahamians who are suffering from food insecurity.
Yeah. Mario, what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I remember our elderly used to say, eat all your food because imagine how many kids in Africa are starving. But now that message, unfortunately, applies to right in our own country. Um, I had lunch today with Philip Smith, the executive director of the ADO, the Agricultural Development Company, with the backyard farming,
Hmm.
and it is a healthy conversation. They're trying to implement solutions. They're really their board is made up of some very strong people, very determined, and that is a path to a solution, which is a start. If we can get farmers farming, if we can get farmers to make a living by farming, if we can then get everybody farming some organics and the backyard farming program. I think they're going to launch it next week, if I remember correctly, on the I think it's the 13th of October, the initiative. But yeah, again, we're talking about feeding, and unfortunately, when you have food expensive and then you have the lack of food, then what you end up eating is not necessarily the best thing for you as well. So you've got the fast foods that are very affordable, not very good diet base. You combine that with the Bahamian diet of high cholesterol type foods, and you've got a health pandemic that follows along with this feeding
Yeah,
problem that we have, right? So
for sure.
diabetes, heart disease, all those things correlate when you're having to eat, non-healthy foods, right? And you
Hmm.
don't have an option. So what strain does that put on the social services for medical with, like I was saying, high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attacks, um, because people they don't have a choice, and they can only eat what they could afford, unfortunately, and that tends to be a lot of food that leads to health problems.
Unhealthy foods, yeah. And
Yeah.
let's not here's an aspect of this discussion that I think is often missed, and that is the correlation between poor nutrition and mental health. A lot of violence and everything else that's going on in this country, I really, really, really think that it is high time that we look at the connection between the lack of nutrients that translates into antisocial behavior. This is a discussion that's not being had in this country. And I think we're missing the mark when it comes to that. I really hope that we get to the point where we do start to consider that this is not just about putting something in your belly so you ain't hungry no more. Because I know that many of the food agencies, they just want to get people fed. And so one of your former colleagues, Keisha, Sadie Francis, who actually put me on to you, she was telling me that when she worked with Hands for Hunger, that the mission and the goal was to distribute healthy food, but they got to the point where we just need to get people fed. And so if somebody is bringing something that may not be the healthiest food in the world, what do you do? Do you turn them away, or do you get that to the masses that need something to eat? But we have to graduate to the point where we go beyond just getting a belly full, um, and try to get some nutrients into these people, because without that, we are looking at, like Mario so well pointed out, challenges to the healthcare system down the road, and I dare say challenges with education, and challenges with our national security as well.
Mhm.
This.
That's a good point, Michelle. With crime,
Mhm.
in the United States, they can correlate that, and however it reads, but a 1% increase in hunger by the population, whatever data they keep, increases crime by 12%. Right.
Wow.
So that's data directly related to security and crime. So imagine if we continue to see this need to be fed, what impact that's having on crime. And if anybody believes that they're not correlated, they're misinformed, right?
Yes.
The data shows that there's a direct correlation to health, to crime, to learning. All of those areas are directly impacted by persons who go hungry.
Absolutely. We are, quite frankly, creating the perfect storm by not putting sufficient attention on healthy food and making sure that our people are fed well, nutrient dense foods, because we just put it out there what the implications are if that does not happen. And I think that aspect of this discussion is not receiving enough attention. And I pray to God that the stakeholders now start to consider looking beyond just, okay, let's just throw them some noodles. Because noodles have zero nutrients.
Right there. I mean, in our line of work, it's about walking that line very delicately, because as Mario could tell you, if you're talking to someone who is in an immediate need for food, their children are hungry now, I see nothing wrong with giving them something now for this moment in order to keep them moving. Right? But I think that while we do that work, while we do the work of giving people the food that is donated and something, we have to continue working on the other side to try to increase as much healthy food as possible. And Hans Fong, this is something that we fully believe in. But at the same time, we couldn't rest well thinking that we turned down a donation because it wasn't as healthy as something.
I understand.
We actively seek to do both. And even during the pandemic, when we were distributing food to 5,000 households throughout Providence, we actually didn't give out any canned goods, right? Because we knew that, canned goods, people are at home, people are moving about. We have an issue with high blood pressure in this country. Canned foods are notorious for having high sodium content.
Yes.
So we actually made a point to give out eggs, vegetables, produce, things like that. So we absolutely believe in that. But at the same time, you would be surprised, in all honesty, how many people come to us and request noodles, right? This is what they're accustomed to.
I was just about to say that. This is what they know. So it's
right.
a re-education, really.
Right. And that's what we do. That's what we do. We're like, here, have the noodles, but have you ever tried black beans? And we educate them. We spend time with our clients and we say, so here's what you do. You boil these black beans with some garlic and onions, and it'll be really good. So it's about meeting our clients where they're at, but at the same time, building a relationship with them. So now they're interested in kind of learning new ways to eat and new ways to feed themselves and their children.
I just recently discovered, and we have to take a quick break, but I just recently discovered glass noodles. Glass noodles are actually made from sweet potatoes. And they're fairly affordable. Like you can get a packet of glass noodles for like $2 if you go to a wholesaler. And it's a healthy alternative because they're made from sweet potatoes.
The best potatoes to eat. Yeah, sweet potatoes are so high in nutrition and fiber. They're so good for you versus white potatoes. There's no, again, this is education we're talking about. I like that. I'm just envisioning going into the schools and teaching the children. If you get them young, you get their minds young, you get them their palate used to this type of eating. It has to have a positive impact.
All right. Well, listen, we got to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to have to talk about the national approach. When we talk about the pandemic, for instance, and the food packages that were distributed by the government, if you look at what was in those boxes, instead of bread basket items, we call them bread casket items. The white flour, the sugar, everything bad that you can imagine was in those boxes. And I'm not saying that they didn't have some good stuff in there, but a lot of it was not good. So we have to talk about a national approach to even addressing what we call bread basket items and encouraging our food stores, etc., to be able to bring down the prices on some of the healthier options. So let's talk about how that can happen on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim fix and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, all-terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here. We are talking about food insecurity and its relationship to this hunger crisis that we now see going on in the country. Hubert Edwards, who represents the Organization for Responsible Governance, recently had his say as it relates to this challenge that we're facing, particularly as it relates to the external forces that have an implication on this. Here's what he had to say on the matter.
With a $1 billion food import bill looming over our heads, the Bahamas continues to face issues with food security. According to a recent survey by CARICOM, a number of Bahamians were found to have skipped meals, worried they would not have enough food to eat, and some even revealed that they would go a day without eating. Head of the Organization for Responsible Governance Economic Development Committee, Hubert Edwards, says he's tentative to describe this phenomenon as a hunger crisis, but believes the survey brings a much larger issue to the forefront.
We just came out of, or we are still coming out of, a very significant health pandemic and financial crisis. As a result of that, persons would have lost their jobs. Individuals would have find themselves in places where they have to be using up their resources, savings, and so on. And at this point in time, they're making very, very serious decisions as to, one, whether they're going to eat, whether they're going to miss a meal, or the type of expenditure, whether they're going to spend on food versus health or education. So yes, the issues are significant. At this point in time, a hunger crisis, maybe not, but there are important issues which would have come out of this survey.
Edwards believes that this inflationary pressure will continue without reprieve over the next few months, which will force some members of the public to make lifestyle changes. As for those living on or below the poverty line, he remarks more discussions need to be had to bring them some sort of relief.
To be as frugal as possible. We have to say in a two-tranche way, for those who can, be more frugal, be more sensitive with how you spend your money, how you budget, and the things that you do. For those individuals who are living on the quote-unquote edges, you have to survive as best you can. And we then must speak to the policymakers, we then must speak to the government to say, look at the programs, the plans, and the initiatives that you have in place to ensure that they are sufficient, they're responsive, and they're able to support these individuals who can't support themselves.
So that, in a nutshell, spells out the challenges that we're facing when it comes to this conversation. And a big part of the conversation is the cost of healthy food. I often hear it in my work as a certified holistic health coach. Michelle, it's too expensive to eat healthy food. It's just so much cheaper for me to go and grab the noodles or grab, the corned beef. Healthy food is expensive. Produce is expensive. And I say to them all the time, listen, man, there are alternatives. You don't, go to a farmer's market, go to the produce exchange. We have a lot of Bahamian farmers right now who are looking for places to take their produce to get it to market. I mean, it hurt my heart some months back to see somebody had sent a video with onions just rotting on the ground in one family island because they couldn't get those onions distributed. And, we have to, I think, make more of an effort and do whatever needs to be done to encourage those in the food industry to find a way to work with local farmers so that we don't have food rotting on the ground while people are going hungry. I don't understand for the life of me why a locally produced item should be as expensive or more expensive than something you're importing into the country. My guests today are Keisha Ellis from Hands for Hunger and Mario Carey from the Bahamas Feeding Network. What are your thoughts on that? What do we need to do to encourage our local food suppliers to make decisions that will help to bring the prices down on locally produced food?
I can jump in, Mario,
Sure.
if it's okay.
Sure.
So I think in this country, like I said earlier, we haven't reached the point where we have a lack of food in the country. What we have is a lack of access to food. We have, I think the major part, one of the major parts of the problem is logistics, right? We're an archipelago. We have a very difficult time getting the food that's grown on the islands into the capital in time for that food to be distributed. And we at Hands for Hunger, we've had many conversations with local food suppliers. We work really closely with the major hotels and resorts in the country in order to collect their fresh food, which we are then able to donate on their behalf. And the answer that they give us all the time is that it's difficult for them to get the quantities that they need at the time that they need it from local farmers. So they've all indicated to us that they would love to buy locally, but the issue seems to be in getting enough of what they need from the farmers in time for them to use it. So I'm not surprised that you saw a video of onions, deteriorating on an island, because we don't seem to have the mechanisms in place to facilitate the farmers to get it to market in time.
That's unfortunate. Mario, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've heard the same. Is the consistency of the product, of the timing of delivery, logistics about delivering the product. So it's the logistics that will take, again, some sort of an effort to organize it. And the islands are spread out. You got weather conditions. You got limited flights, cost of the boats, fuel going up. So it is a difficult challenge, and but there are consumers that are ready to buy the product. I know that. I hear that. And so if we could figure out a way to get it to the consumer, the demand is there. And at some point, somebody's going to figure it out. There's a lot of smart people out there.
I know the produce exchange is a great resource. You can go into the produce exchange with $15 and come back out with a box of fresh produce. So, I know it's possible. Quite frankly, though, we've been talking about this for decades. So I don't know so much that it is so difficult to do, or if there's just not a will to do it. Because how long is it going to take us to sit down around the table and figure this out? It ain't that hard. And I hear what you're saying about the archipelago and all this kind of stuff, but how long we can kick this can down the road? How long we can have the same conversation without trying to figure out how to fix the problem? I think that part of the problem is a lack of will to fix the problem.
I don't disagree with you, Michelle. I think that it's possible, right? We're not trying to create a brand new concept, which is move food from one place to another place. Obviously, that can be done. That's how we get food into the country. And I think that, there is a lack of priority as to which line should we be facilitating. Should we make it easier for food to be imported to the country, or should we make that a bit more difficult and therefore free up resources to kind of help facilitate food moving throughout the country? And those are big questions, right? Those are international questions, governments in terms of international pressures to have more open markets, in terms of kind of economic pressures. There are international economic organizations that would encourage a country like the Bahamas to not focus on food. That energy, buy the onions from Dole. Don't worry about the local farmers. Let those local farmers work in the tourist industry. This is the kind of advice that we've been getting as a country since our independence, right? And that's the route that we've chosen to take in, and we've seen gains from that route. But we've completely neglected kind of our own long-term sustainability. And now it's going to take concerted efforts and maybe a deprioritization of some of these kind of long-standing mechanisms in order to focus on those. And, I agree with you. It's about making a decision and following through from that decision.
Yeah. I actually had on my show in another place that shall remain nameless, the owner of Super Value was on that particular show, and he said something that I found quite interesting, because what I said was, back in the day when I was a student in school, in primary school, we had a vibrant agricultural sector, so much so that one of the things that we had to learn at the time was which island was known for growing which produce. So Eleuthera was the island for the pineapples. I think it was Exuma that was the island for onions. And we would actually have to say which islands were known for growing which produce, etc. So at one point, we had a very vibrant agricultural sector that was doing much better than now in terms of feeding our people. And Mr. Roberts admitted on that show that a decision was made to move more towards tourism that you just mentioned, Keisha. And so, in essence, whoever sat around that table decided, oh, we're going to not spend so much time focusing on agriculture. Let's push all these people towards tourism because tourism is where it's at. Okay, fine. But now we find ourselves in a place where we're facing this hunger crisis. We're facing this challenge with importing so much of our foods. And quite frankly, I dare say that many of the people, I shouldn't say many, but I would suspect that some of the people who sat around that table and made that decision are now benefiting from that decision financially still, because they are the ones who have control over the foods that are coming into the country. So they are benefiting from this push towards importing everything. So you have to question whether or not there will ever be a will by some to fix this problem if they are now financially benefiting from it being the way that it is.
Yeah, Michelle, always follow the money, right? I guess that's what you're saying. Yeah, always follow the money, and yeah, that's a very true point. And you know, agriculture in the Bahamas has always been a tough conversation. You know, what can we grow? What does the weather allow? What does the soil allow? Where's the consumer base? The consistency? Who wants to do the farming? A lot of Bahamians don't take to that type of labor. We know that. The typical persons that are out there in the sun doing the farming are not Bahamians, right? So, but that comes to a point. I've been speaking to Carlos Palacios. They have this hydroponic growing mechanism.
Farming, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just, Michelle, I think, if there's anywhere a direction that we should look at is how would that be a focus? Because every container, a shipping container, is equivalent to 5 acres of land, right? Mm-hmm. So they're able to grow in these containers, and they can grow 365 days, 24/7, no issues with pesticides, no issues with weather, and the product is organic and healthy. Mm-hmm. And I just think if there is a path of least resistance, maybe that is the one. Well, I'm exploring it, right? I'm trying to get a deeper understanding on how would this work, and is this a path that we should go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that don't worry. In my personal life, I am extremely pessimistic, but in public, I really like to focus on the bright side, and I really am optimistic when it comes to the future of food security in the Bahamas, or at least what it could be. And there is such good work going on right now in the Bahamas across different islands in regards to people doing more farming. In addition to the hydroponics labs that we have here in New Providence, I know that in Eleuthera, the One Eleuthera Foundation is doing a huge, tremendous project in terms of greenhouses and how we can work with different produce items to make them more resilient in the Bahamian soil. So I think that we are what could be the cusp of a renaissance in the Bahamas in terms of agriculture and growing. And Mario, you mentioned Philip Smith and what he's doing with the Agricultural Development Organization. Just yesterday at MPC New Providence Community Center, where our office is, there was a workshop on backyard farming, and the room was full. The room was full with just ordinary Bahamians who were coming to learn, how to stop their cucumbers from being attacked by pests, how to make sure they plant their seeds properly so that they can yield the best results. So I think that we're at the very beginning of what could become a powerful movement if we continue to feed it and acknowledge it and encourage it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and be invited on shows like this, and to bring that awareness to the conversation, and to the opportunities, and what's available. Because I think the Backyard Farming Initiative offers persons for free, I think, the ability to start a farm in their backyard, to be managed, and there's an interaction there with some of the youth, and some of the baseline intent of that program, which I think is a brilliant idea.
I need to get Philip's contacts from you, because he would have been a great person to have on this show as well. But my phone was either stolen or I lost it. I think it was stolen, and I didn't get back all of my numbers. And his number was one of the ones that I didn't get back. And so I had no way of reaching him. So Philip, Mary, if you don't mind, after the show, if you could send me his number, that would be great, because he would have been a great person to have as part of this discussion as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'll get it to you, Michelle. That'll be fine. He should be listening. Like I said, I just had lunch with him, and I told him I was coming on the show.
Well, Philip,
So
if you're listening, call in.
You'll be calling him, yeah.
Telephone numbers to call: 3260271, 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, 3260272. The WhatsApp line. Do not call the WhatsApp line. The WhatsApp line is for text messages only. I say this every day, and just about every day somebody calls. But 801-0271, 801-0271. You think it's that they ain't getting sufficient nutritious food, and that's why their brain ain't connecting when I tell them don't call? Maybe that's what it is.
So I'll make sure he gets in touch with you, but a conversation that Philip and I had, again, was the topic of fasting. Philip is a nighttime faster, and I am a daytime faster.
Mhm.
And again, through the education of eating healthy combined with fasting, it can be a conversation that should be taught and people should pay attention to. So
Absolutely.
It's been proven over and over again, the benefits of intermittent fasting for health purposes. And that's a part of food, right? It's a part of when you decide not to eat, for how long you don't eat, and there are a lot of health benefits with that. Unfortunately, not the best conversation for somebody who has nothing to eat, but it should be a part of the conversation, right?
Yeah. All right, do me a favor, Mario. Send Phil the link to StreamYard that I sent to you for this show, and tell him if he's available to hop on. If not, then no worries. But if he's available, it would be great to have him be a part of the show. So
All
just
right,
go ahead and
Michelle.
forward that link to him. Meanwhile, we're
Okay.
going to take a quick break. And then on the other side of the break, hopefully, at that point, we'll be joined in this conversation by, from Great Commission Ministries, Bishop Walter Hanchell, who works tirelessly to feed people every single day. And I'm hoping that he can jump on by 3 o'clock, if not shortly thereafter, to tell us about what he is saying from his perspective and his views on how we can fix this problem. This is GPS. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here, along with my guest Mario Carey from the Bahamas Feeding Network and Keisha Ellis from Hands for Hunger. We're talking about food insecurity and the fact that it is trickling down to what some are describing as a hunger crisis here in the Bahamas. Far too many people here in this country are going hungry, and we're talking about how we're going to fix this problem. The telephone numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, 3260272, the WhatsApp line 801-0271, 801-0271. So a major challenge for many people who are having a difficult time financially is the cost of healthy food. It's a lot easier just to grab something that's cheap and quick and fast, but that is not necessarily nutritionally dense. It's a lot easier to grab foods that are unhealthy than it is to reach for the healthier options. And now we're hearing that we can expect food prices to go up due to inflation. That's a scary thought. What are your concerns as it relates to what is coming? What are your major concerns as to how we're going to handle this crisis?
I think again, the people that need to be fed. I think if you look at the mothers, the children, and the elderly, how is it as a country that we could allow it to happen? I think as the demand increases, the community has to respond. We talk about love for your fellow person, caring for that person, and this is the call that's out there. You have, the listeners that are out there. For example, I was at the Great Commission, and there were a group of people there, and I was a young priest, and I was saying, "What are y'all doing here? Are you a part of the organization?" No, they said, "I like telling this story. We work at Bahamas. We work in a restaurant. We know this need. We got together. We raised money. We bought the food. We started cooking at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we made 250 meals to come here and help, just to make a difference, right? And that, just doing that, hopefully that we can get more of that. We can get more schools. The kids need community hours. They can do feeding programs. They can raise money, bring food, cook the food. They can create competitions. We need corporate involvement. Unfortunately, there's no demand on the corporate world or the international clients to contribute to a crisis like this. It's all out of their sort of the goodness, but you know, that's what we need to call on. They need to step up, and everybody needs to help. There are too many negative things that go with people being hungry. I think we've kind of pointed a lot of those out, right?
Yeah. Are you talking then about, when you're talking about corporate responsibility, what about this thought? We often have to sign memorandums of understanding for major investors to come into the country. And we often give up a whole lot by way of taxes not being required of them for 10 years and all this kind of stuff, particularly of those who come in for the tourism industry. What are your thoughts on asking them, okay, we're giving you all of these concessions, but a part of your MOU is that you have to donate certain amounts to agencies that help to feed people or agencies that help with social services, etc. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I'll answer that because, Michelle, I have met with every administration since, I don't know, 1992 with that same conversation. Kind of having spent a lot of time in the U.S. in the real estate industry, working with a lot of different projects, for the most part, any developer going into any community in the United States has to donate to some sort of a communal service without question for their projects to get approved. They have to build parks, they have to build schools, they have to build libraries, they have to build whatever it is. There has to be some give back. And I always felt that, you know, you can negotiate at the beginning. So if a developer comes in, for example, Bahamas, and if we have a social, non-political program that needs to assist with our social aids that we need, assistance that we need, and let's just say 1% of your development cost goes to this fund. And again, it's not political, and it's a proper board that distributes aid to programs like this. And every administration felt that it would scare that developer away, and I differ, because I think we're one of the only countries where it's not required that I know of.
Wow.
That there's no give back. Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Wow. That's unfortunate. They say that when it comes to negotiations, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you can negotiate. And if nobody's even willing to bring it to the table, then how are we going to ever get, you know, that's unfortunate. I'm really disappointed to hear that.
I agree. If you don't ask for the business, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why it should be a one way. I think everybody has a responsibility socially. Everybody needs to have a give back responsibility. It has to happen.
Yeah. You look at countries like Jamaica now, albeit our situation is different because Jamaica is a single land mass compared to us that, you know, in archipelago. But one of the things that they do quite successfully in Jamaica is that if they have a particular thing that is grown locally, and I think Keisha may have touched on it a bit earlier, they raise the tariffs on importing that thing so high that it is a deterrent for food suppliers to not find a way to buy local. Now, granted, their situation is different from ours, single landmass. I get that. So it would be easier for them to transport produce, say, from the country into their cities. But if they have a chicken farmer, or they get all the chicken farmers together, they determine as a government how much those chicken farmers can supply locally, and they ensure that the local chickens are purchased as a first option. And then what they can't supply, then you have permission to bring in the rest, not the other way around. Can we do something like that where the tariffs, listen, man, right now most of the time, I buy all of my local produce from a farmer's market or the produce exchange. It's fresher. It hasn't been traveling that long, like the stuff that's imported. You know where it's coming from. You know the quality of it, etc. And it's cheaper than me walking into the food store and buying the same thing that was imported. So are we at the point now where our government needs to figure out if it's kind of difficult to figure it out from the perspective of the private sector, that as a government, should they put more effort into trying to figure out the logistics behind it, but putting legislation in place to make it less attractive to bring in foods that are could easily be supplied locally, like they do in other territories in the Caribbean? What are your thoughts on that?
Keisha, you want to talk it? Yep.
I can jump in, and I know that this is a much bigger conversation than just kind of these one-off things. I know that Jamaica has had a long history with the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization, and just the havoc that those organizations wreaked and in that country, and the damage that it did to their own local agricultural industry. Yeah. And just the overall well-being of the people in that country. And I think that, there's a fear that small island developing states have when it comes to kind of being strong against, the big brother or the big bad wolf, depending on how you want to look at our relationships with larger countries like the United States. And I think that our government has always erred on the side of not upsetting the neighbor, and always tried to do everything we could to remain in their good graces. And I think that, when it comes to tariffs and import restrictions on these things, I think that, for the most part, when we look at our tariff duty rates, the government has made efforts to kind of make things that are produced locally a bit more expensive to bring in. But at the same time, the government has not put the resources into making sure that those items that can be produced locally are encouraged to be produced locally.
Right.
So
right.
there's this kind of double-edged thing where, so on this side, I agree. There are reasons why we should make it more difficult to bring these things in. But if you're not going to support the industries locally in ways other than just subsidies, because all subsidies do is make it easier for these things to be grown, but they don't make it easier for these things to be transported across the country and get onto the plates of the people who need it. So these have to be bigger conversations. They need to be conversations made by a number of people who have various different vantage points and different perspectives in order to really make a decision that will benefit the country, rather than just seemingly to do something huge, but then at the end of the day, you have onions going to waste in Cat Island because they weren't able to make it on the mail boat in time.
Mario, what are your thoughts?
I think Keisha, she's right in a lot of what she said. It's a big picture. Government, it's difficult when you have to rely on government to be effective. And Keisha hit on some things there. I think, it's a big picture. And unfortunately, it's a difficult one to answer. I don't know if we have the consistency of a product to be able to implement some sort of a tariff. I know at one time they tried it with the chickens. I think with the farming, it was in place for a while, but somehow the farms shut down and that whole process failed. I don't know. Again, that's a big question, Michelle. That requires a lot of effort to sort of get to that point, right? So.
And from our standpoint at Hands for Hunger, we like to work on our level, and if we think about a kind of practical thing that we can do on our level to kind of address food insecurity, especially among the people that we work the closest with, it is the change in the food choices that people make. It's the not only seeing food that has a label as food. It's seeing the things, developing a taste and a newfound appreciation, again, for some of these things that are so easy to grow. Because what we found is we actually get, especially during the summer months, we would get these huge donations of eggplants and squash from local farmers. And a lot of these are backyard farmers. Right. So we would have these beautiful eggplants in our pantry and we would encourage our clients to take them. And all of our clients said, well, I don't know what to do with eggplant. Right. They didn't want it. They didn't recognize it as actual food. So these are the things that we try to change on this level. And once we get people appreciating more and valuing these things that are easily grown here, that are easily accessible to them, then we'll see the shift. Then we'll see the prices drop because, the food suppliers make it seem like, oh, there's nothing they can do. Prices are going to go up and they're just the same victims as we are. And to some extent, that's true. But a lot of it has to do with what we as consumers are demanding, right? And we're not demanding the things like pumpkin and eggplant and squash, things that can't be grown locally. So our suppliers aren't going to put pressure on the local farmers to say, hey, I need more eggplant. I need more eggplant, right? So if we keep demanding the things with labels that have to be imported, then those are the things that the distributors are going to focus on. And the prices will continue to go up because that's the nature of, the capitalist model, which we follow. So it's about us demanding the things that are easily accessible and regaining some control over our food choices.
I hear you. Let me tell you, one of my absolute favorites, just me personally, is butternut squash. Very easily.
Everybody likes that.
Huh? Say it again.
I said everybody likes that, Michelle. Oh yeah.
Oh, I love me some butternut squash.
Yeah.
You can buy a butternut squash, put that on your table, and that will sit there for weeks and not spoil. It has a very long shelf life, delicious. You can prepare it in many different ways. But to the point that you just made, Keisha, is that if I am in a city community and my mama never used to cook butternut squash, and her mama never used to cook butternut squash, I know nothing but no butternut squash. All I know is white potato. So obviously we're talking about an effort that has to be put into re-educating our people so that they're not going to walk past that butternut squash at a farmer's market, which is very affordable, very delicious, very good for them. And as opposed to saying, I don't know what that is, I got to go in the food store and buy a bag of potatoes. So quite frankly, a bag of potatoes right now in the food store is so expensive. I went to the food store the other day and picked up a bag of potatoes and I nearly fall up when I got to the register to see how much it cost. I said, it costs so much. Buying a potato costs all of that. So we really have to re-educate our people.
These are natural consequences of industrialization.
Yes.
Right. So we don't consider ourselves an industrialized nation, but that's what a hotel is. That's what our tourism product is, right? It's the equivalent of our industrialization. And when you move people into cities for jobs that they now have to leave and go to and spend most of their time with, and yes, they get a paycheck, but they don't have time to farm anymore. And they're encouraged to, okay, go to the food store. You have less time to cook. You have less time to grow. And so some of these things, it's not so much that people just decided one day to not like, things that are grown. It was because the way the way our society changed when we became more industrialized is people have less time for these things. Right. There are a lot of, I mean, when the people that come into our pantry, many of them, are working, 3 different part-time jobs, none of which amount to minimum wage, which is already extremely low and, unable to sustain a family. But they're working, they're busy, they have children. Noodles are very quick. So even if they were given an eggplant or something like that, they don't necessarily have the time to be able to store that. Right. And I think you raised a good point about the longevity of some of these vegetables, because again, a lot of people that we serve don't necessarily have proper refrigeration.
Yeah.
Right. Or adequate refrigeration where they can keep some of these things that have a lower shelf life. So I really like to encourage people to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture when we think about people who are suffering from food insecurity, and why sometimes they make the choices that they do, why sometimes we see them making choices that we know from our perspective are so unhealthy, but in a lot of cases it's really their only option when they look at their entire life.
So let's talk about this educational process and what that should look like. How do we now change the mindset? How do we now get people to understand that it is not so hard as you think to eat healthier foods and not look down on some of the healthier foods? I mean, when I was growing up, you pretty much didn't have to go hungry because there was always something in season. So even if you got to go fill your belly off of plums or fill your belly off of or ganaps or dilly or one of my favorites, mangoes or whatever, there was always something in season that you could go and you could pick and you could eat. Nowadays, a lot of these kids don't know what a dilly is. They don't know. A lot of our fruits are growing and you drive around and they're rotting on the ground. Nobody's eating them, and I'm like, miss, nobody eating these. You ain't mind if I take a couple off your tree? Because I mean, we have you bring up a good point, Keisha. We have so evolved away from that, and yet we see all over the islands where many of the superfruits that God has blessed us with are rotting, and we have failed at passing on that knowledge to the younger generation. That not only is this good for you, but these are real fruits that are delicious and they're free for the most part. So
I'd like to say we work with organizations at Hands for Hunger that are kind of addressing this specifically. We know that there are groups that are talking about preserving things, drying things, processing some of these items, because of course you reach that point in mango season where everyone tired of mango, right? And it's
not me.
So there are a lot of people that are tired of mango. When you first get the mangolas from your cousin and they all nice and pretty, but it's only so fast you could eat the mangolas.
Yeah.
So we're working with groups that are actually teaching people how to process these things. How do you can these? How do you freeze these? How do you preserve these? So come November, when you crave in that July mango, you can actually access it. It might not be an actual mango, but it's mango puree or mango juice, and this is how you can use it. And these groups are out there, and they're doing good work. And like I said, in my optimism, we really are at the beginning of a renaissance, I think, in the way we look at food and the way we process food and grow and use food in the Bahamas. And all we need is to continue to stoke that fire. And I really think that we can see a difference, at least in the next generation. By the time my kids are having this conversation, they'll be talking about how much we've grown and changed as a nation. And while we talk about our grandparents and what they used to say about food, they'll laugh at the way we used to complain that Bahamians didn't eat healthy. This is my optimistic view.
Yeah, good stuff. You're talking about learning how to process foods. I have some cousins. I don't know how come I don't have any mango trees in my yard, but anyway, that's another story. I digress. But I have a cousin who has a yard full of mango trees, and what they started doing was juicing them, and they would bag up the, like you say, and then give us all a bag. And So last year they gave me this really big bag of mango puree, and I put it in the freezer. And I really just started to work on that this year. It's just about all gone now. And some days I just enjoy that, just, let it come down enough, scoop off a big part of it, and just enjoy it like a frozen treat.
Mm-hmm.
Other days I throw some of it in a smoothie. But I said to her the other day, I said, man, I got to go buy me a juicer for next mango season so that I could, because I have my little source where I go to get my mangoes. I said, so I could start juicing my mangoes. She said, juicer? Girl, our juicer was our hands. We just. She said, we on an assembly line here in the kitchen. I peel, the next one squeeze off, the next one. I was like, well, I'll be doggone. Here I am saying I gotta wait till I buy a juicer. She's like, girl, we ain't wait for no juicer. We do what we had to do.
Exactly.
But the point is, though, that we do have access to a lot of very healthy foods that we are ignoring to our detriment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Bahamians need to go back to the days when we ate these things and understood how good they were for us. And, because a lot of people going hungry and you got stuff around the place that they could easily have access to. So it just makes sense. I was driving home yesterday and I spent a whole $3 on a bag of hog plum. Back in the day, hog plum was free. Now I spend $3 a bag with the rest of them. I can go into my hog plums when I get home. I put them in the fridge and they get me nice and cool by the time I get home today. And I'm going to enjoy me some hog plums this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is that, back in the day, they didn't go to waste. And there's far too much wastage in this country because of, like you said, a lack of knowledge, or, we fail to pass on that information about how much, nutrients there are in these local fruits and why we should not let them go to waste. So definitely re-education is a part of that of this discussion. And we have to talk about what that re-education would look like. What do we need to do? Do we need to go into the schools? Do we need to produce more programs? How do we re-educate our people to understand what we have? Is that a caller for the show? We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good afternoon, Miss Malcolm. How
Hey,
you doing?
52. How are you?
And you guess I'm doing very well. The show is so real, right? Until it's frightening. I don't know if you've been in the food store recently, especially in the cities, right? You see the shelves are empty, right?
Yes.
And so what I'm afraid is I don't see any paradigm moving towards creating the impetus. Like at least we could plant some trees in schools. And, right now I have a lot of mulberry trees that have been pruning. And, like whenever I plant a tree, I want to always wish that I live to see it bear, right?
Mm.
And the thing is, I want to mention what I really call the mention. I'd like to guess to comment on it. I've been looking into the immune system. I studied botany before I got to the college, and I always continued reading up on it. The plant immune system is quite different from vertebrates, right? And so what happens is in the plant kingdom, they're not able to acquire immunity, but then they create this defense, right, against pathogens, right? So I was looking into the paradigm of, we always talk about the effects of insecticides, pesticides, fungicides. Thank God you're on our side, right? Now, I mean, because, the body goes through these. And the thing is, Miss Malcolm, there's a lady who was the forerunner of this. She's out of Florida. I think she was the college professor. She was the first one to bring really light to this pesticide problem in America. And I can't remember her name, but the thing is, everybody could go and Google her. And so she had more gonads than men because she actually was targeted. Mm-hmm. And so we'd be looking at the effects of the pesticides not only on us, but in the reverse psychological outlook on the plant's immune system. Mm-hmm. So when I said that in response to the text that who calls and says that every time she buys the fruits within days they're rotten, right? Mm-hmm. And so you notice how quick some of them grow molds. Yes. External factors determine that, but because the plant are affected by pesticides, mm-hmm. et cetera, mm-hmm. that's why you see these particular type of situations with these plants now. So we're damaging the plant's immune system, and there are things they're just finding out that they don't want the public to know. But we have to look at it in that light. Insecticides, fungicides, they all have a part in dysfunctional in the plants, and then you turn around eating the chemicals. So it's not only the chemical that's in the fungicide, et cetera, but it's also the chemical response of the plant itself.
Mhm.
See what I'm saying? Have a good day. All right.
Thank you so much, 52. You always have a lot of knowledge. We've been joined by Bishop Walter Hanchell. Bishop Hanchell, glad you made it, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you, Michelle?
Excellent, excellent. Good to see you.
Thank
And
you.
welcome to the show. 52 brings up a very important point. We also have to, and we have to take a break, but we also have to consider all of these genetically modified foods that are helping to kill our people, all of these non-organic foods that have been sprayed with the pesticides that are, the cancer rates, there's a reason why they're so high. And yet it is so difficult for people to eat organically because, again, of the prices. So, yeah, but we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about food insecurity and how it's trickling down to the hunger crisis that we're now experiencing. And on the other side, we're going to definitely hear from Bishop Hanchell and the experience that he is having with trying to keep people fed. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I'm Michelle Malcolm, along with my guest, Keisha Ellis from the Bahamas, from Hands for Hunger, Bishop Walter Hanchell from Great Commission Ministries, Mario Carey from the Bahamas Feeding Network. We're talking about the food insecurity crisis that is leading to a serious hunger problem in this country, where many, many people are going hungry, and the efforts that are being made by various organizations like the ones represented here who are trying to make sure that people are fed. The telephone numbers to call, 3260271, 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line, 801-0271, 801-0271 for text messages only. Bishop Hanchell, I know you are doing a great work with Great Commission Ministries, no pun intended. You're feeding a lot of people every day, and yet it seems that the need is continuing to grow. Tell us what you're seeing on the ground. Bishop Hanchell, can you hear me? Okay, it seems that we lost Bishop Hanchell. Hopefully he'll be able to tune back in quickly. You know, I raised prior to the break, we were talking about the point raised by the caller 52 in terms of the herbicides and pesticides and et cetera. I was really very disappointed to learn, and I hope it's not still continuing, but I was very disappointed to learn that BAMSI had embraced genetically modified seeds from outside the country. That was very disappointing to me, because a great part of the problem that we're experiencing with regard to health is the proliferation of genetically modified foods, which do not have the nutritional value that our bodies need. But before we get into that, I see Bishop Hanchell is back up. Bishop Hanchell, let's grab you on while you're still on.
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you. I got knocked off. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I am happy. My colleague Mario Carey is there, and I want to just thank the Lord for the feeding network and all the agencies that feed the poor, because were it not for agency like Great Commission Ministries, the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, and also the feeding network, this country would be not as it is now. It'd be much, much worse. But I thank God that we are able to serve those persons, the underprivileged, that come to us every day looking for a hot meal. I'm thankful that God has allowed us to be of service. And it doesn't look good what I see happening and where we're headed based on what is happening around the world, Michelle. I see, we're just getting over the pandemic, but with the amount of wars that are brewing, the amount of wars, and war brings deprivation, war brings suffering, war brings pain. And already, because of that war between Ukraine and Russia, prices for food have skyrocketed. There's food shortages globally now. Somebody sent me a list of food that are short. The amount of food items that are out of stock in even in America. I was amazed. So I know it's going to happen here in the Bahamas, and we must prepare for it. As a matter of fact, it's already started. Yeah. Already, you go into food stores, and a lot of times you can't find X amount of stuff. You can't find certain items, and people are struggling. And then the cost of food. So something has to change dramatically in order to bring relief to our people. because I don't like the way it's going, and we need to prepare now. I'm asking people to prepare for this because it's coming, and it's coming quicker than we think. I saw this over a year ago, and I warned people, but nobody listened. And so what I'm asking people to do is start stockpiling. It's not going to cause a panic. Don't panic, but start making arrangement to have some extra food items, because the food store are going to run out. So are we going to wait until they run out and then start complaining?
And then
do something about it now.
Yeah. I tell people every time you go into the food store now, buy a little extra this if you could. Just one.
Exactly.
And put it up in your, because it's coming. If you walk into the food store right now, it don't take a genius to figure out what is happening. The shelves are practically empty. You notice they have food at the front of the shelf, but behind that, it's empty, people. It's empty. So figure out now what you can start to do now to try to help prepare yourself and your family for what many are saying is inevitable. What's inevitable sooner than later. And we can only pray, those of us who believe in prayer, that this quote unquote famine that's on the way will not be a long extended one. Because if you guys are having the challenges that you are now facing, I hear you all the time, Bishop, crying out for help. If y'all are facing the challenge you're facing now, imagine how much more difficult it will be to continue to feed more people when we don't have access to the food coming in. It's very serious. Very serious.
Michelle, I'm going to have to go here in a minute. As you know, I have an autistic son that needs my attention, so I'm going to have to leave. But Walter, good to see you. It was, again, I compliment you in the effort, 32 years of feeding Bahamians, and you notice that the lines are getting longer. You notice that new faces are showing up. The people that work with you were a delight to meet. There's a labor of love. The lady that I met there was working there for you for 16 years. And, she's just blessed to be able to help the needy. I just found that an amazing... It's a labor of love, hard work, hot kitchen, limited supplies, and they're feeding 500 people a day. That's just unbelievable what you're doing there. And we gotta try to keep supporting you and encouraging you. I think, again, for Bahamians, if we're able to work out some logistics, get the farmer's product to the Bahamian, knowing that the prices are better, the product is fresher, jarring it maybe, freezing it, some way to preserve it, some way to let the public know what is BAMSI have, what is the food market have available, and how do we coordinate the information? How can you coordinate through some paying system like Canoe if you go to buy something, and then some information is out there where you can go to buy it when the stuff's harvested. We know October is the planting season. A lot of things are being planted. I had suggested to Phil Smith with the backyard farming that we create some sort of a chef's competition, things that are grown in the yard, groups of people, and this way the palate can be improved on, and people come together for some competition to expose, whoever wants to get involved in a program like that. But all that said, Michelle, just to wrap it up from my end, October 16th is World Hunger Day. Mm-hmm. So I'd like your listeners to be aware of that. And I have suggested that we call it a fasting day for persons to consider fasting for that day in recognition of World Hunger Day, just so that they can get a sense of what it feels like to go without food for a day. Just an idea that we're going to start promoting. But Michelle, thank you, and it's good to have the counterparts on this conversation. It's very enlightening.
Thank you, Mario, and I see where Phil Smith has joined us, so thanks for reconnecting us. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Mario.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Phil Smith. Are you muted? You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay, gotcha.
How you doing?
Hi, Shelley.
All is well?
Yes, dear. What about you?
Good. Listen, I lost your number because my phone was stolen and all of my numbers didn't repopulate.
Would you believe that? The same thing happened to me, Michelle.
Wow.
Exact same thing. My phone was stolen. So a
Wow.
lot of my contacts. Yeah. So we'll be sure to exchange those numbers today.
Yes, for sure. So welcome to the show. I was wondering when I had heard you were no longer with the Feeding Network, where you had gone to. Now I know. Let's talk about the work that you're doing as it relates to this whole question of hunger in the Bahamas.
Yes. You would like for me to tell you about it?
Absolutely.
Sure. So what it is, we started it's a nonprofit called Agricultural Development Organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to make homegrown food sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few areas. We have backyard and community farming,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have school farming, and we have also commercial farming.
Okay.
So we were, FTX was very kind and our only donor today. So far, we are just beginning. I'm at my staff right now putting together a plan for bringing in additional donations. But FTX gave us over $1 million,
Oh, wow.
a donation. And so that has helped quite a bit. So we gave $200,000 or $197,000 of that to the Church Commercial Farming Group, which is headed by Pastor Pat Paul. It has over 300 churches from all denominations, and they are responsible. So in partnership with them, we are going to, we have bought 5,000 backyard kits, hired 5 extension officers who will monitor, who will train persons in farming, as well as monitor, how farms are progressing, and then also commercial farming. So we had 6 greenhouses that we got donated from the Chinese embassy. So we are setting those up in various areas. We want the church to manage those churches as well as feeding organizations. A number of those who are on your show today, we would want feeding organizations to manage those community farms or set up a community farm somewhere, and as well as assisting with backyard farming. So we believe that these feeding organizations would probably know in pretty detail persons who are food insecure and who could benefit from backyard farms. And so they will then recommend those persons who we will give backyard farms to, as well as monitor the progress of those farms. Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Go ahead, finish your point.
Yeah, so we believe those 2 areas could truly assist in with help persons who are food insecure. So through the churches, through feeding organizations, we believe that we could reach a lot of persons who are food insecure with backyard farming or even vertical farming, because some of those persons may not have yard space, or maybe renting or whatever. And those persons could definitely benefit from the commercial farms.
Mm-hmm. So do you believe that addressing this problem at the community level could be a very effective tool in this whole fight to end this hunger crisis? Like, a previous show I was talking about the possibility of getting communities to work together. Like, I forget the young man's name from the Pine. What's the name of that community? Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge is Grand Bahama. Anyway, there's in the local community right here. I think it's Pinewood. He actually has a plot of land. I believe his name is Jamal. He actually has a plot of land where they grow local produce.
Okay.
And distribute it to the community free of charge.
Yes.
So they're making sure that their community, the people within Pinewood, get fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, etc., organically grown.
Yes.
And so they have some good, healthy options on the table.
Yes.
Now, clearly, in order for something like that to work in many communities, you're going to have to talk about some kind of support to make that happen. You're
Right.
going to have to identify community leaders like him who are willing to put in the time and effort to, there are many ways to do it. In some countries, what they do is they identify a plot of land, and then they sort of cut it up into little portions, and they allow persons within the community interested in farming to come and have their own little portion of that plot of land where they grow whatever it is that they grow. So on this one big parcel of land, you may have 10 different farmers, each growing something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sufficient to support the whole community.
Yeah.
So are we missing a major part of tackling this problem by not putting sufficient emphasis at the community level? Do you think that is where a big part of the solution is?
Yes, I agree, Michelle. And, I think the key, though, is the management of that farm, and that is why I think it's important to identify, like began or thought about doing, and I will be having talks with a number of the persons on your show today about managing a community park, a community farm.
Mm-hmm.
But management is key. Without proper management, it's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally agree that at that community level, most of us have been feeding for many years, and every day you have to go back. Every week you're going back, asking for donations to purchase food. In this way, it's much more sustainable. You know what I'm saying? And so we came up with the proverb, teach a man to fish. Rather than give him a fish and feed him for a day, teach him to fish and feed him forever,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the concept, that if we could, grow the food in these community parks or within the backyards, I think that would go a long way, of solving this problem.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, Keisha?
Oh, hi, Phil. Good to see you.
Hi, Keisha.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. I am a huge advocate in people taking control over the aspects of their life that they can. So I think that growing food in communities, it's a great idea and a great option. Phil hit the nail on the head when he said it's about management. I think that sometimes we overlook the fact that farming can be difficult. Farming can be time consuming. It takes space. I don't think that in order for us to reach a level of food security, that everyone needs to be farmers. I don't think that everyone needs to be farmers, but I think that those who can should definitely be encouraged to grow their food. So I definitely agree. And I think back to what we've been talking about, and we need to remember how to like the food that we grow as well. That's important as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What more can be done in terms of the relationship between organizations like yourself and government agencies to try to bring this all together so that we don't have sort of silos where people are working individually here, there, everywhere, and we don't have a collective effort as much? What do you think that needs to be done, or are you happy with the way things are as is?
Yeah, I think ADO, the organization that we have, Bahamas Agricultural Development Organization, is that we are in that space that will bring all the groups together. So on our board, Michelle, we have the Minister, Clay Sweeting. We have the president of Cisco on our board. We have Rupert Roberts on our board. We have the president of Royal Caribbean on our board. So we've been able to put a really good group together so that there will not be overlapping. We could share. We have an incredible market access through those names that I've been calling. That's for the commercial side, though. But yeah, what we did, what we tried to do, Michelle, is to bring the people together who we know will make this happen. And of course, um, persons on your show are on our board. So yeah, we believe that managing that so that you know, we have a committee where that's responsible for bringing all of the persons involved in agriculture together, so that there isn't any overlapping. Take for example, I had a meeting yesterday with Disney Cruise Lines, right? And now we came up in that meeting where we will bring um, Disney, Royal Caribbean, um, Cisco, all of these persons, we will bring them together in a room and have a half day of meetings where we will talk about what needs to be done in order for commercial farmers to truly benefit from what these purchasers are prepared to do. So very, very important, trying to bring all the parties together. Keisha and I have lunch next week, right, Keisha? I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we
Just
do.
to get, her thoughts and get her, fully involved. And so, yeah, very, very important to bring all the groups together.
Good stuff. I'm really encouraged to hear that. And in addition to that, I've seen an increase of communities coming together where they have their own little backyard farming groups. So you're going to be working with those community groups as well, Phil?
Yes. So, Michelle, we have hired 5 extension officers that will train, and then they will go and monitor what's going on as persons, grow their food. They will be trained, and then we will monitor what they're doing and continue to give them advice on what to do. And so, yeah, we are going to get involved. So, we have been able, like I said, I think we have been able to get good donations. Just had a group today, Templeton, who I believe, and I shouldn't be saying this, it hasn't happened yet, but it's just an amazing fit, because it's something that Sir John Templeton would have been very, very excited about, teaching a man to fish. Those are the things he likes supporting, and so this really fits well with what they're doing, what they'd like to do.
This is all great. But we have a call on the line, Phil. So let's take this call real quick because we only have 4 minutes left in the show. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, hello. Good evening.
Hi.
I'm calling from Freeport because Great Commission has a lot of things to deal with and a lot of people, and I was sick. And I remember Great Commission to help out for a while, and the cook got sick, and I had to cook for 400 and something people, and I never finished till after 4 o'clock that day. And Pastor Hanchell had to end up giving his food away. So there's a lot of things they have to deal with at Great Commission. And I hope plenty of people will give up because there's a lot of need for food in Nassau and Freeport.
All right. Thank you so much for calling and sharing your experience.
All right, then. Bye-bye.
All right. Keisha, Phil, Phil, it's a pity I didn't get you on early in the show. I got to get you on again sometime in the near future to talk about the work that you're doing. And I'm glad we reconnected. Check the private chat. Here on StreamYard, I put my telephone contacts in there. I'm going to give you each 1 minute to give us your final thoughts on this about solutions. Keisha, let's start with you.
I'll go back to what I said. I think that we have finally reached the point to where we're taking this seriously. We're not where we need to be yet, but I definitely see an excellent framework for us getting to a really good place in the future. And it's the work that all of us are doing. It's the level of seriousness with which agriculture and growing is being addressed nowadays. It's the enterprising state of mind that a lot of Bahamians and young Bahamians are now adopting. So I think, again, if these fires can be stoked and encouraged, I definitely see us getting to a good place.
All right, Phil, you get the final word.
Okay, what's interesting about getting the church, like I said, the backyard and commercial farming is and community farming is with a church group with over 300 churches. And I think that's an excellent way to get churches more involved in going out into the communities. What you find In some cases, you have a really large church in a community, and they are really not truly reaching out to those persons within that community who are really experiencing difficulties. And so I think this would be an excellent opportunity through agriculture that the church could reach into that community and truly touch a lot more people, And
Yeah.
so I think this whole concept of backyard farming and community farming is an incredible way to get churches more involved in outreach, So I look forward to that.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you both for being here today. I want to thank Mario Cario, who dropped off, had something else to deal with, and Bishop Hanchell, who was also, as you could see, he was in his car, so they got a lot going on. Thank you to them both for being here as well. That is my time. And I just want to encourage everybody to start thinking, first of all, be grateful for what you do have. If you have an ability to feed your family every night, your children ain't going to bed hungry, don't take that for granted, because there are many out there who don't have that. And make sure you teach your children gratitude. And then think about how you can help others who are not as fortunate as you. It's 4:00. I got to get out of here. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you both for being here. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. And stay tuned for more great programming here on Global 99.5 FM. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you. See you, Keisha.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio.